or good, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Today, here now, it is Thursday morning at 8:30 where I am. I hope you're having a good morning. I'm going to talk about some interesting things today. Let me set some stuff up while I let people come on in and join. Let's see what I'm going to do here. Screen share. Whoa. All right. I'm going to do, let's see, nope. Nope. I want to make sure I got the link set up. I do this every morning. How's your day? How's your morning been so far? I hope it's been good. Lots of things going on in the world. We're going to take a break from the Iran situation. That's been a little bit wild lately. We're going to take a break from that. And we're going to talk about this guy. That's who we're going to talk about today. All right, so come on in and I'll give it another minute. Oh gosh. Did you guys have a good time yesterday? Did you enjoy yesterday's live stream? I love doing those. And then tomorrow's going to be Feel Good Fridays, which are also great. All right, you know what? I'm just going to get started. I think people can join this one. We're not doing a formal trance today, so we have a little more time. So let me get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Daily Upgrade with Jason Andrews. My name is Jason Andrews, and I'm a hypnotist, which is really cool because I know how to change things on the inside. And I want to do that to make things better. And you like it when things get better, and I like it when things get better, and everybody likes it when things get better. And today, I want to talk about the redeemed former hoe phenomenon. This has been this has been on Twitter, making the rounds on Twitter the last few days. And it's kind of an interesting and nuanced topic, and I'm going to talk about that. And as I do that, I'm going to be rewiring your brain in real time because remember, I'm a hypnotist, and you'll have better insights and clarity on a lot of different things after this session. So today we've had already some things going on today. And so we're all just going to reset. We're going to take a deep breath in, hold it for just a moment, and then we're going to let it all go. All right, ready? All right, breathe in. Hold it. And let everything go. Good. And then, because your brain has been all over the place, probably you've had other things to think about today so far, we're just going to take all those thoughts and gather them up and bring them all in right here. So you can focus in better. Now, today I want to talk about the what I call the redeemed former hoe phenomenon. And we're going to start with this. Okay. Are you guys familiar with this one? This guy writes this big post about how he was a virgin. His wife was formerly promiscuous, and they'd been married. And she basically went from major hoe to, dating with zero sexual contact with this guy. Okay, before getting married, and this triggered a lot of strong opinions, as you might expect. Now, On the one hand, this looks like a woman who just went through a lot of degeneracy. She was apparently a drug addict. She couldn't count the number of men she slept with. This looks like a degenerate person who society just is totally okay with her doing whatever she was doing, and then coming back and winning by preying on a nice guy. That's what it looks like, right? Oops. Let me get back over there. That's what it looks like to a lot of men, because she gets no penalty, and in fact, she gets rewarded. She gets rewarded. Now, there's another side to this, which is the story of redemption. Okay. And this quote here, okay, if someone argues that a former promiscuous woman is damaged goods and questions whether a Christian young man should marry her, remember Rahab, the Canaanite prostitute that became a mother, right? And this is a very big theme in Christianity. Okay, so you've got two separate things going on. You've got okay, this is just some woman being unaccountable for her actions and getting even rewarded for bad behavior by preying on a man who is already being abused by society as a whole. Okay, right? And then on the other hand, you have, okay, the theme of Christianity in general is redemption. And so this is perfectly okay, and in fact is good. You got these two different sides. So now I'm going to go over to this. Okay. Now this guy here is, let's see, who is this guy? Yeah, he's a Christian counselor. And he says, as someone who does pre-marriage counseling, I would be more inclined to tell a young man it is okay to marry a redeemed woman with a sexual past than to tell a young lady it's okay to marry a man with an anonymous X account who calls sisters in Christ whores, right? So he's saying, no, the right answer to this is the redemption story, and that's it. And so I bring up this. I said, well, would you tell a young woman it's okay to marry a redeemed man who used to beat his girlfriends? Would you tell your own daughter it's okay to marry that guy who used to beat his girlfriends, but now he's redeemed? Okay. Now, the reason I pointed this out is not to attack Christianity and not to attack the redemption story, but to point out the double standard here. How many women would say yes to that? How many, if you think this guy tells his wife that he's going to tell that they should tell their daughter to marry the former girlfriend beater? You think he's going to say that? I doubt it. I doubt it. Now, this just reveals the double standard here, because the whole point of the redemption story in the modern world is that it benefits women. It doesn't benefit men. It doesn't benefit men. It only benefits women. And that's the big problem that we're dealing with here. Right now, redemption really it's a real thing. It's a physiological phenomenon. It's not just mental. It works at the nervous system level, the biochemical level. It's not specific to Christianity, but Christianity is based on that phenomenon. And what happens is, once the nervous system gets stressed to a certain level, the conditioning flips. And I've talked about this a lot. This is called the ultra paradoxical phase of Pavlovian conditioning and stressing, right? Nervous system it's normal, gets really stressed out, starts doing weird things, gets super stressed out, starts doing weirder things, and it gets stressed to the limit and becomes, it just flips, it reverses. Right. So that's the conversion experience in a nutshell. Right now, in the Christian world, it's I've done all these things and I need to change, and this is really horrible. And then, okay, now here's the good solution. But these conversions can happen in a non-religious way or in different religions. It's just, again, I want to point this out, that Christianity is built on this specific process. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. It's also true that people who go through that can also fail to completely convert. Okay. Lots of stories of someone's past not their past catching up to them, in terms not of somebody accusing them of something that they did, but that's who they are. That's their character. Okay. Because the past behavior is predictive, regardless of redemption story. Now, the redemption can flip that, so it's way less likely. It can make a real change, but there is still a bigger risk involved in that. So that is real. Now, at the same time, men have a natural, instinctive, evolved preference for women who do not have a promiscuous past. Now, how did this evolve? Why is this there? It's because the man wants to know that his children are his, and that his woman didn't go off get pregnant by some other dude, and then he's spending decades of his life and huge amounts of money and resources and effort in raising someone else's kids, and he gets no genetic benefit out of this. Right? That's that's the worst thing that can happen to a man. That's it. There's nothing worse than that. That is that's it. That is the worst. From an evolutionary perspective and a psychological perspective, there's nothing worse than that. Now, so men naturally have that preference. Now, regardless of whether a woman has been redeemed or not, a man is still going to have that preference. That's still going to exist. Now, he's either going to override it by convincing himself in certain ways that things are different now and this is okay, or it's always going to linger in the back of his mind and cause problems. I don't have an absolute answer to this, but if I had a son who was wanted to marry a reformed hoe, I would advise against it. I would tell him not to do it. And I'm a hypnotist. My my career is making deep and powerful changes, and I can, in fact, create the flip in certain situations. I can manufacture that in certain situations. I know how to change people, and I would still not recommend that. I would, if I had a son who was thinking about doing that, I'd recommend he not do that. I'd recommend he find somebody else. Because regardless of the depth of the redemption experience, there's still effects. There's still effects. There's experiences that cannot be erased. Right? So that male preference is real and it's valid. And the question I asked about the former physically abusive man, or somebody said, well, what if he was a former gambling addict? Right? That's another reasonably good one. And why? Because they destroy the relationship and they trap the other partner in a situation where it's an abusive situation. Either the man gets cheated on or cuckolded, right? Because she's been promiscuous, or the woman loses the man's resources because he gambled it all away, or she gets trapped because he's physically abusive. Same thing in reverse. It's a parallel situation for the sexes there. And the thing about this is that the hypocrisy is huge. Unless you're going to forget both sides and say both sides are okay, then you're not doing it right. Now, are you really willing to do that? I don't know. My thought is, if you're going to go down that route and say, okay, that, well, the redemption is real and everything is fine, then you have to do that for everything and everyone. And I think that makes you a sucker. I think that makes you a fool, because you don't know which ones are real and which ones aren't. It's only time that's going to tell. Now, that's maybe harsh to say, but here's the other thing: someone could be redeemed, and God washes away their sin. If you're going to be in the, to use the Christian filter, and so that person is good with God, but that doesn't mean they're good with their spouse. That doesn't mean they're good with society, does it? I mean, those are two different things. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And there's these three guys that escape from the chain gang from prison, and one of them gets baptized, and the police catch up to them and catch him, and he says, I've been redeemed. I've been redeemed. And one of the guys says, you've been redeemed with God. You have not been redeemed with the state of Alabama. Good morning, James. And I think that situation applies here. It's a completely different question. Right? Being redeemed with God does not necessarily mean somebody is redeemed with everybody else. Those are two different things. And the third thing I wanted to talk about today, and I just saw this morning and it really blew my mind. A guy wrote, this was not mine. I don't know whose it was, but I saw it on X, and he said the biggest crime against women in women's own mind is not physical abuse or emotional abuse or any kind of abuse. That's not the biggest crime against women in their own minds. He said the biggest crime against women in their own mind is identifying and revealing publicly their sexual strategy. Meaning, get impregnated by the best man and have your kids be raised by the stable man. Right? That's kind of what he was going at, what he was getting at. And I don't know how true that is or not, but there's something to that, because that women will return to abusers of any kind. I mean, that's just a trope at this point. I mean, now I'm not saying women sit down and think, well, I'm going to do this instead of that, and this is a bad thing. No, I think there's a big instinctual problem with that conflicts with what they actually prefer consciously. I think there's a big natural conflict there. I think that's really hard for women. But I think he was onto something. I need to think about that one more, because it's pretty it's a deep one. But I think there is some truth to that. And the last thing I want to say about this is that we've got a situation where if you say, okay, hey, look at all these former degenerate hoes who were redeemed and now they're trad wives. Okay, if you're doing that and you're publicly proclaiming that, and all these guys are like, oh, great, I get a used mattress for a wife, there's two things that does. It violates male preference, number one. It makes men think that society doesn't have their interest in mind. And it doesn't. I think that's pretty clear at this point. And number two, that this gives women a path, a plan that, oh, I'm just going to do all this stuff and be degenerate. And then whenever I want, I can just take the off ramp by converting. Okay, now that lines up quite nicely with the cynical female mating strategy view of best DNA from the best men, stable life from a secondary man, a secondary level man. Right? They line up. They line up. You're enabling that life path for women. Now, most women are going to stop anyway at some time around 30 to 40, um, somewhere in there. They're going to stop anyway because they can't keep being promiscuous forever because they age out of attractiveness. I'm not trying to be harsh here, it's just true. They age out of attractiveness and they can't do it anymore. So they're going to want an off ramp anyway. They're gonna want an off ramp anyway, and this just enables that. And then you have all these Christian pastors and leaders and who are saying, "Oh yeah, that's just fine." Okay, you're just enabling the bad behavior. So in order to make things fair, there has to be shaming again. There has to be shaming again because that's what women at their deepest psychological level respond to the most. Shaming or not shaming. That's the biggest motivator for most women. For most women. So I want you to think about all those things that I've talked about so far today. And there's a lot of those things. I've talked about 4 or 5 different things, right? The redemption phenomenon, the male preference being valid. Okay. And then there's like the female mating strategy and the quote unquote crime of revealing it, and how that path of degeneracy for women enables it at the expense of men. Okay. And the thing is, there's all these things that I've talked about. And here's the thing, right? If the if the range of thoughts is this big, I want to take things and make them more compact and more efficient. And I think you can do that as you think about all of this. Because it's real, isn't it? The things that I've said, they're all real. They're all true. They're all valid. And so let's create a coherent understanding of that that's really going to move things in the right directions for you. Because your understanding of this is critical for the success of your relationships, isn't it? You have to know this. You have to know this. Okay. So as you process that more and more and even more, I'm going to tell you thank you for joining me here today. If you found this useful or helpful or interesting, like and subscribe so I can reach more people. Feel free to share it with others. And I will talk to you tomorrow for Feel Good Friday.